1066. You know the date. It's probably one of the most famous dates in all of history. One single battle, the Norman Conquest, and bam, England was changed forever. But what if I told you the story of that day isn't some straight line? Nope, it's more like a puzzle, with all the pieces scattered across 1,000 years. So, let's start putting them together.
I mean, on the surface, it seems pretty simple, right? You've got the Battle of Hastings and a clear winner. The Normans. William the Conqueror becomes king. So you'd think, okay, one battle, one winner, one story. But that's not what we find, not even close.
You know, it really helps to think about it like a huge football match. The winning team's fans, they're going to tell you all about the incredible skill, the amazing goals, the heroic victory. But the fans of the losing side, they might be talking about a bad call from the ref, a missed penalty, or just how crushing the defeat was. It's the exact same game, but two totally different stories. And that is exactly what happened in 1066.
All right, so let's set the scene a bit. Who were the main players in this epic clash for the future of England?
So, on one side, you've got the Normans. These guys were basically descendants of Vikings who had settled in France, and they were led by the super ambitious William. Their secret weapon? Heavily armored knights on horseback. And on the other side, you've got the home team, the Anglo-Saxons. They were the established rulers, led by King Harold. Their big strength was the shield wall, a nearly unbreakable line of soldiers. Two totally different armies, and both absolutely convinced they had the right to rule.
The event itself was incredibly fast and unbelievably brutal. It all came down to one single, long, bloody day, October 14th, 1066. After hours and hours of fighting, King Harold was killed, that famous shield wall finally broke, and the Normans had won. By Christmas Day, William was crowned the new King of England. The timeline looks simple, but the second that battle ended, a whole new battle began, the battle for the story.
Okay, so to really understand these different stories, we have to put on our detective hats. We've got to go back and look at the evidence that was left behind.
And this is where the real investigation kicks off. We can't just take one person's word for it. No way. We've got to gather all the different clues we can find, the art, the official records, even the stuff we dig up from the ground, and see how it all fits together.
Our first piece of evidence is maybe the most famous of all, the Bayeux Tapestry. And honestly, calling it a 70-meter-long comic strip is pretty spot on. It's this incredible, massive piece of embroidery that tells the whole story of the conquest in pictures.
But here's the thing. To understand this comic strip, you have to ask the most important question. Who is it made for? And the answer is almost certainly a rich and powerful Norman. And that right there changes everything. Because when you look closely, you see the Normans are shown as these brave, organized, heroic figures. This is our first huge clue about Bytes. It's basically a Norman victory lap in thread.
All right, next up, we have the written accounts, what historians call the Chronicles. Think of these as the history books of their day, carefully written down by monks and scholars. But again, you have to ask, which monks?
And surprise, surprise, we get two completely different tales. The Norman writers? Well, of course, they paint William as the rightful king, fulfilling his destiny. But the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, written by English monks who had just lost everything, they describe a total catastrophe, a terrible slaughter. They talk about losing their land and the start of a brutal occupation. Same event, polar opposite stories.
And finally, clue number 3, the physical stuff, the things archaeologists actually dig out of the ground. This is a totally different kind of clue. Weapons and armor tell us about the sheer brutality of the fighting. And the ruins of the huge castles the Normans built right after the conquest, they show us exactly how they stamped their authority all over England. These things, they don't take sides, they don't have a hero, they just tell us what was real.
So, we have all this conflicting evidence, a heroic tapestry, a tragic chronicle, and cold hard facts from the ground. So why? Why are the stories so wildly different? Well, it pretty much boils down to 4 key reasons.
To crack this case, we can use a simple 4-part toolkit. We need to look at the storyteller's perspective, their potential bias, the purpose behind their story, and the information they actually had to work with. Let's break each of those down.
First up, perspective. This one's easy. It all starts with the question, whose side are you on? Were you a Norman knight celebrating a victory that just made you rich and powerful? Or were you an Anglo-Saxon farmer who just lost your king, your land, and your freedom? Where you stand completely changes what you see. Second, we've got bias. Okay, so this is like perspective, but with an agenda. You're not just telling your side of the story. You are actively trying to make your side look good and usually make the other side look bad.
that Bayeux Tapestry is the perfect example. It's basically Norman propaganda, designed to make their invasion look like a noble quest.
Third is purpose. You have to ask, why was the story even being told in the first place? The Norman Chronicles weren't written for fun. They were political documents. Their whole purpose was to make William's rule seem legitimate, to prove to everyone that he wasn't just some foreign invader, but the one true rightful king of England.
And finally, information. We have to remember this was the 11th century. There was no 24-hour news, no internet, no reporters on the scene. Most people got their news from word of mouth, from memories and from rumors. And we all know how easily those things can get twisted and changed as they get passed along.
So, when we put all these pieces together, the different perspectives, the clear biases, all the hidden motives, what does it actually tell us about how history gets written? Well, it all starts right here, with one single pivotal event, the Battle of Hastings, a thing that absolutely undeniably happened. But that one event is immediately seen through the lens of many, many different sources. We've looked at 4 key types, but there are even more out there. And every single one has its own angle, its own bias, and its own reason for telling the story the way it does. And this right here is the big takeaway. History isn't a single story that you just read in a book. It's an investigation. It's about putting together a giant puzzle and knowing that every single piece was shaped by the person who made it. Our job is to see the whole picture by understanding why each piece has the shape it does.
And this whole idea that history is a puzzle that we have to actively put together, it doesn't just matter for something that happened 1,000 years ago. It matters right now, today.
So, the real lesson from 1066 isn't just about Normans and Anglo-Saxons. It's a lesson for right now. Every news report, every history book, every social media post, it's a story being told by someone with their own perspective. The real question is, when you hear a story, do you ever stop and ask yourself, who is telling this and why?